Hi folks, you're with Tassus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to just go over some of my thoughts on the interview that Tucker Carlson had with Carl Rittenhouse. There've been a few little snippets of Mr. Rittenhouse talking on, being videoed in the street. I think he was talking about he brought his medical kit with him to offer first aid to people, in that riot and so on. But this is the first time, yes, certainly since the case, that we're about to see him without the immediate and direct pressure of that court case and possible verdict hanging over his head. So, maybe the enormity of what he's been through hasn't quite sunk in, but I was very impressed with just the lack of bitterness. I mean, he seemed to be absent the sort of anger and bitterness that someone who'd been through what he'd been through would have. He was attacked by people, all of whom had a criminal record. He was attacked by people, and he defended himself in what, as far as I can tell, is the most clear-cut case of self-defense that you'd get. And yet still the state, when all political and ideological, still they arrested him, imprisoned him, dragged him through that bullshit trial, and put up allegations of criminal acts against Mr. Rittenhouse they knew were not true or accurate, and they were relying wholly on the firestorm ginned up by the mainstream media, and then on ideology and hoping to get across the line with that. It didn't work this time, but as I've said before, it was a close-run thing. So, but just looking at Carl Rittenhouse's demeanour, he was very measured, and he showed a lot of restraint. The same restraint, by the way, that I believe that he showed when under attack from all those people. He didn't go around shooting indiscriminately, which many people would have panicked and just gone for it, just sprayed bullets at whoever was chasing them. And he didn't. He only when people were directly threatening his life did he defend himself. And at his own admission, he'd point the rifle at people who were coming at him, but if they backed off and put their hands up, then he showed that much restraint, which was admirable under those circumstances. Bear in mind, he's being attacked. There are gunshots behind him. He's having stuff thrown at him. He's hit over the head with a heavy-duty skateboard. He's kicked in the head by Jump Kick Man, and yet still his responses are very measured, very precise, very clear, and that has to be, I believe, applauded by any and all who look at that. And that same restraint, or that attitude of restraint, came across in his talk with Tucker Carlson. So we're looking at a young man who again, well, he may not understand the enormity of what's gone on, but a young man who showed great restraint and continues to show such restraint. He's not bitter. He didn't, as he had every reason to. He didn't make scathing comments about the people around who contributed to that situation. There were some who he's clearly unimpressed with, but nonetheless, he showed a degree. I'm not sure courage is the right word, although there's no lack of that in him. But he showed, I think, just an absence of the sort of malice and anger, and just the sheer frustration and the toll that would have taken, given the amount of time that not only he spent in prison, but waiting for the trial, going through the trial, and so on. The sheer pressure of that, and on an 18-year-old kid who you wouldn't call worldly wise. So I couldn't. I was particularly impressed. I thought there would be someone who would be angry and would lash out at those who had willfully caused him harm, such as those in the mainstream media, and particular characters that had almost made a crusade of it in the media, of disparaging and smearing Mr. Rittenhouse. And yet he didn't. he had none of that malice and anger, and that to his credit. And nobody wants to go around in their lives or a part of their lives harboring and nursing such hatred and anger and bitterness, because you may sort of think that you're getting back at other people with it, but whatever you give them in unpleasantness, you get it yourself at least as much, if not more, and it eats away at you from the inside. And there were, I'm sure that there's going to be some reflection later on, and there's going to be plenty of opportunity, given how young he is, to look back on these events, and if his life unfolds or doesn't unfold particularly well, then he may look back and see this as a bigger deal than he currently sees it now. But I was impressed with that, and if he can continue to do that and not have that bitterness and that anger of what's happened, then he would have every reason to be both. But if he's able to avoid that, then I would think he's got a much better chance of having a happier future life, and that would be what I would wish for him. Now, he's now a brand name. He's so big and so well known. That'll subside over time, but he's now a brand name, and so he can't just fall under the radar. And the people that want to get him, the Democrat Party machine, the deep state, Jerry Nadler, the FBI, all these people, they're thinking, well, how do we get at this kid? He's still young. If they play it wrong, then the sympathy will go with him and not with them. So they have to. What are they going to do? And and it's not my place to be giving advice to Mr. Rittenhouse. But if a young and a young sort of a small frail girl comes up and you don't know and says, "Oh, why don't you? I really like you. Why don't you come? And my parents are away and come back to my place." And then you can be sure that there's going to be a torn blouse and then a Christine Blasey Ford script for her to read into the mainstream, the waiting with bated breath mainstream media, and I wouldn't be surprised if they'll put honey traps in place for Mr. Rittenhouse. So when you're not dealing with someone you already know, then just be that little bit extra careful, and just watch out, because they'll be waiting for you to trip up, and certainly for a short time. University campuses, for example, I think it was Arizona University. There are lots of activists around the universities that would like to deliver you up to the mincing machine, and so again, just be aware if you don't know them. Now, you can't be paranoid, suspicious of everybody. I'm not saying that, but if there's a position where you could be put at risk and you don't know the person or persons, then make sure you've got a recording device switched on for that. Just be that little bit. Just be a little bit more careful, and after a few years they'll lose interest in you. But for that meantime, just be aware of being that little bit more careful. But if Mr. Rittenhouse can avoid again the anger, the bitterness, and the toll that can take on people, then the chances are, given his demeanour as expressed in the interview with Tucker, he wants to do good things. He wants to be helpful. He wants to serve his community and serve the nation. And he mentioned just in passing that he was thinking maybe of being a lawyer. And he's I think his main career vocation choice was going into nursing or something in medicine, I think it was. But he should, after this experience, he should consider, I believe, a career in law, and there would be no one more aware of the failings of the legal system than somebody like him and like Mr. Rittenhouse, and I hope he gives that consideration and looks at law as a profession where he can do something meaningful and worthwhile for his wider community. Anyway, those are just a few of my thoughts about that interview with Tucker Carlson. I wish him every success. I wish him well, and congratulate him on showing so much restraint and empathy for those around him, and for not being bitter about it. You've been with Tastus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.